Hello, welcome to Melody Bar. Today we're going to look at changing guitar strings. But this video is going to be going through the way that I change my guitar strings. Over the years, I have slightly tweaked the way I do it here and there. There is no one definitive way to change your guitar strings, but there are a few tips that you probably should follow to avoid breaking the strings and for longevity. When I started changing my strings, it was quite often that I would snap them while changing them. It was a real thing. It was very frustrating. So I'm going to hopefully give you a guide that will avoid you doing this and make sure your strings last a very long time. There are a few different ways you can wind the strings at the top, and I will get to that later. You also want to give your string enough leeway when you're putting them through the loop, and you want to give them a stretch while you're tightening them to make sure they stay in tune and they last as long as they can. There are a few tools you will need when changing your strings. One of them is obviously the strings themselves. I'm going for these Elixir 11s. When you hear people talk about what sort of strings you have 11s, 10s, 12s even, what that's referring to is how thick the top E string is, the thin E string. As you see here, these are 11s. Elixir are a very good brand, quite expensive relatively to other strings, but they come with a coating. These are phosphor bronze and they've got a nano web coating. What that means is the strings don't get as dirty, as rusty, because they've got a coating over the top which makes them last longer. Probably is worth paying the extra. But if you're new to changing your strings, maybe go for, I would never recommend the cheapest. Never go for the cheapest, but D'Addarios are a good option just while you get used to changing them, because there is a chance you may tune them too high, you may snap them, you may cut them too short, just different things like that. And you will also need some wire cutters. You're probably better off using a wire cutter that's like got a thin tip so you can get right in to cut them. However, this is my multi-tool, so I use this so I don't have to have any other tools. And you can use a thing called a string winder. However, I just use my hand. I don't feel the need for a string winder. It just speeds up the process a little bit. But again, if you're new to changing them, you don't want to overcomplicate it with an extra tool. Right, shall we get into it? The first thing I'm going to do is loosen all my strings. Do you see here? What I do is I don't take one string off at a time. I loosen them all. So as you see, just loosening every string on the guitar. So you see that? I've got them all nice and loose, and as I then go back to the low E string, the 6th string, I just pop them off like this. This is essential learning. Changing your strings is one of the most important things you can learn how to do, because if you've got old, rusty, gunky strings, your guitar will sound dull, it can sound horrible, and then you're probably more inclined to snap a string. Here we are at this point where the strings are off. However, they are attached by the bridge pins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them out by hand. So there we go. I like to put them in the order I'm taking them out, just so they go back in the same one, even though that isn't the most important. But your low E string probably has a bit more wear on it because it's got a bigger string going through it. So, oh, look at that, they're coming off nicely. I've actually modified these in the sense, well, not modified, I have got, these aren't the ones that came with the guitar. These are a nice little wooden one, just for aesthetics. No. There we go. Actually coming out by hand. If they don't come out by hand, what I would suggest is wrap your cloth around it and just give it a pull. And there we go, look. Just like that, all of the strings are out. Here we are into the main crutch. Strings. Here we are, these are the strings. They come usually in the order of the highest string, the 11, up to the 52 in this case, which is the low E string. I'm going to start on the 52. Get the string out, this is what it looks like. I'm going to unwind it. Unwind my string. And what you do is, let's see if we can get this nicely on film. Take the pin from earlier, you put the string in the hole, you put the pin in the hole, and you sort of pull it. This is popping out a little bit. There we go. That's in. that's locked. Now, I'm going to pull the string through this hole here, like this. Now, here's where you need to pay attention. So what I do is I leave about 7 inches of string, which is about that much. So that's quite a lot of string. You need to, if you're on the top row, you need to turn anti-clockwise. You want the string to be winding round this little spindle this way round. You see what I mean? I've seen it on guitars where people tune it the wrong way, so your string's going round the outside. Please, please, please make sure you tune it going round the inside. Here's where a bit of preference comes in. The common way to do this is you turn, and you let this loose string go over the top. I did that for a long time, and very recently I decided to go a different route. Let this go underneath. If it goes over, it's absolutely fine. What it means is this bit sticks out. If you go under, you can make it go down so it doesn't scratch like the inside of your guitar case. Let's try and get some spinning, shall we? As you see, it's going under. And look what's happening here. This bit of string is coming above this. I hope you can see that okay on the camera. What I'm going to do now is push this string under there, under the loop as it's forming down, so the string loops itself downwards while this goes back underneath, and it loops, and there we go. It's covering the string. You can absolutely do it the other way around. There is no real difference in the actual end product, and make sure you do not poke your eyes out with these loose strings. I have a friend, amazing guitarist, who actually leaned in and stuck that right into his eye. And he ended up in hospital for a day. It was not a good situation, so be careful. Okay, at this point, the string is building up a lot of tension, which is what you want. It's going right into the nut slot there. Very good. So you can see this, the way it's starting to bend down. Now, it's coming through here. I'm doing it a little bit more complicated than if you just let it go over the top of it. And one thing you want to try and do is wind it so it doesn't overlap itself. Okay, at this point, I might pull my string, stretch it a little bit. And what I will do is also, at this point, when you start getting a bit of sound, I'll put my tuner on. I have a built-in tuner on my guitar, so I can see. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my on the top tuner just so you can see what's happening as well. Here we go. Clip that on. So now you can hopefully see as well. D sharp, E. Okay, now you've got this loose bit of string. I would suggest potentially leaving it. However, I'm happy with this string as it is now. So I'm going to take my clippers and give it a snip. What I was saying before is, on this little spindle now, the string loose bit is pointing downwards. If you tune the other way, it'd be pointing upwards. If you let the string go over the top of the winding string, because it went underneath, this loop now is pushing it downwards. Check the tuning again. D sharp, E. And that's how you change a guitar string. I'm going to go through all the others now. Here's your A string. A string in this situation is a 42. Same thing again. Grab the bridge pin. Put it in the slot. Pull it through. That's tight. Through the loop. Pull it through. Get it in the slot. See, about 7 inches. Start to wind. I'm going to show you just quickly. It won't affect my string, but as you see, when I'm talking about going underneath or over the top, this here is winding over the top of the string. which would cause the bit that you're looping around to go downwards with this poking out the top. But like I said before, I like to go underneath now, so it points it down. The only tricky bit with that is, as you get to this point, the string wants to go higher, so you just have to make sure you push it below the string that's winding round. So now the string is being forced downwards. Make sure this goes back under, and at this point it will push that string downwards, so it is out of your way. Okay, into the slot. I'm going to give it a bit of a stretch at this point. Boo, 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 boo. Bit of a stretch. We've got a bit of tension. This is being tuned to A. But I'm actually going to pull it back to this point. Give it the snip. Just be careful before you make these snips. I've done this many times, so I know that this is okay to do at this point, but if you snip too soon, you may snip your string too short, and if you do that, you're just gonna have to use a new string. There we go. Let's get back to A, back to G sharp. So I'm gonna leave that at that point. I'm gonna take this tuner off the top now while I do the next string, which is, in this case, 32, which is a D string. Be careful not to put them on the wrong ones. Often I've seen D being put on by accident instead of G, putting them on the wrong way around. I mean, these are things you think, if you played for a while and you're watching this video, you're like, hopefully you remember doing it yourself at some point. Or maybe you never did. Maybe I am just silly. Okay, bridge pin. String in the hole, pull it through. I'm going to say something that's very important at this point, and that is to be careful. Okay, 7 inches. Careful not to tune too high. So you may go past the point of the note you're trying to tune to and keep on tuning. If you do that, you will 100% snap your string. Something I've done in the past, something you may have done very recently. I've heard students of mine say, I snapped a string while putting them on. So look at that, it's going underneath the loop, pulling it through. And then at this point, I make sure it's being guided downwards. Okay, slot it in. Oh wow, I should be using a working table, but I'm not. Okay, snip. There we go. That's D string. So if you look, I've done my top row there. Can you see the way all the little bits of string? Hopefully you can. They're pointing downwards, not upwards. Just something I've learned relatively recently. Next string, 22. 22, which is the G. I found it trickier sometimes doing the bottom row strings, probably because you have to interlean round, and I think I'm going to say you have to turn it the other direction. So on the top row it's anti-clockwise. Let me just check as we get to that point. Okay, well, anyway, same process. String in the hole, pull it through about 7 inches, and then I'm going to, from my point of view, so I'm turning this now clockwise to make the string wind this way round, clockwise. Here we go. This is the point again. I want the string to go under itself. This is where it gets a bit fiddly. The thinner strings are a bit harder to maneuver. So it's going under the loop. Hopefully you can see that. And it pushes the string down. Same situation as earlier. If you're new to this, I would not recommend snipping them as you go. What I would recommend is you could tie them in loops. If you pull it like this, sort of turn it into a bit of a loop, you can save it for later and snip them all off at the end. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give it a snip now. There we go. Okay. Put the tuner back on just so you can see what's happening again. So I'm going for G. G, give it a bit of a stretch. Okay, that's good for now. Next string. 15 in this situation, B string. This is where they get really thin and fiddly. Okay, same thing. In the hole. Tighten it up. Then you pull it right through. I think you've got the idea by now. This is how it goes for all of the strings. It's the same kind of situation. Okay, about 7 inches. I want to make sure it goes under, which it's naturally doing this one actually. Stretching as I'm going with this one. I really hope you find a changing guitar string video entertaining or informative. Hopefully both, but I'm sure this is essential viewing for someone who needs to learn how to change a string. So please find this moment to subscribe to Melody Bar. There's lots more videos to come, more exciting ones to come as well. But I think this is an essential video for someone who needs to learn how to change the strings. So please, I hope it deserves a like. Thank you. Okay, give it a snip. Push it down. Okay, tuning to B. Okay, finally, 11, which in this case is your high E string, your first string. Push the lump in, pull it through, make sure it's going under, make sure it's being guided downwards, and the string keeps going underneath. And like I said earlier, you can absolutely do it the other way around. I've just found this works best for my guitar. And even if you're not new to changing strings, hopefully you might look at this technique of winding them downwards instead of upwards and be like, ah, okay, that might work best for me. So tuning that to the high E. Brand new strings. Obviously, you need to go back through and tune them all. The best way to make sure your guitar is changed properly and get the strings into the right tunings is to play it. So now your strings are changed. Keep playing and they will settle in nicely. That video was a bit of a marathon and I hope you stuck all the way to the end. If you're still here, please like the video, share it with anyone who may need it, and make sure you subscribe to Melody Bar for many more videos. Melody Bar! Music for everyone.